When's the last time you talked to somebody about your taxes? Do people even talk about taxes anymore? I feel like the conversation around that can be very, very scary. But Suhei is really here to tell you that she does not want it to be like that. And she really stepped into this industry. She really stepped into her own business because of that. Because back then she remembers balancing checkbooks at a young age. She remembers how confused her parents were being Mexican Americans and not necessarily understanding everything. But to take it a step further, even her neighbor who was actually born here in the United States didn't necessarily know everything. And that's when she realized that it was a bigger problem. And essentially, Uncle Sam is taking, and that should not be the case. So she's here to really be a tax strategist to you and really implement what you may need for yourself, for your business, to really make sure that you capitalize and maximize on everything that you're owed. Because who doesn't want their money, put it in their pocket? You worked for it, you earned it, you definitely deserve it. So Suhei will tell you all that and much more in this episode. So without further ado, enjoy episode 187, Embrace the Numbers. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. So look, the year is moving along. We're getting closer and closer to 200 episodes. I'm very, very excited to hit 200, one, just because it wasn't ever something that I thought about. You know, if we really date back to 2019, if you really kind of ask me what was my vision, what was the purpose for this, I really just wanted to talk to people. I really just wanted to bring exposure to some dope people who I met, who I knew, family, friends, mutual friends, friends of family, everything of the sort. But to now be nearly 5 years in this game, to now see how many people I've been able to interview, how many events we've been able to do, giveaways, partnerships, everything of the sort, man, it's motivating. And now I want to get to 500 episodes and 600. You know, I see a lot of these other podcasts and I'm just like, dang, like how long were they really kind of in the lab? And for me to be right around the corner from 200, it's just like, you know, you definitely have to put the time in. But when you're having fun, when you really enjoy what you're doing, when you have amazing guests like Suhei here, it just makes it that much easier. So very excited to be sitting down with her today. One, just because I think she'll be able to help make some people some money, save some people some money, but most importantly, teach some people. And I feel like that's the biggest thing here on the podcast. We always want to spread that knowledge. We always, because, you know, health is wealth, knowledge is wealth, just the same. But we always just want to just encourage, just inform, and just let you know kind of what's out there. We've talked to a host of different people who have put us on game to different things, have given us new terminology, new keywords, new things that we want to look up, have called us out. So maybe she'll even get some call to actions today. Maybe she'll give us some steps to take even right now to really kind of change and shift some of the lifestyles that we kind of have currently. So before we get into all things, before I let her break it down for you step by step, one, I just want to ask Suhei, how you doing today? How's everything on your end?
I'm doing great. It's stopped raining out here in California, so it's great.
You're very similar to Tampa then, because we definitely just had some rain ourselves. So it was Monday. I would say Monday was pretty clear, but the weekend was just bad. And then sometimes I feel like when it rains over the weekend, it just may be the way of just saying, just stay inside, just relax, just take some naps, just catch up on some things. So I take advantage of that. So not too bad, but definitely glad y'all are getting some sunny skies, because I did hear the weather over there on the West Coast was a little bit crazy, flooding and stuff like that.
We're not used to it. That's all.
All right. So my favorite part really of the interview, well, I have two favorite parts, the beginning and the end more so. Obviously, everything in between is very important. We definitely need it. But I love the beginning just because it really just gives people that opening, that eye-opening experience, that time to really dive in, to really pique their interest, catch their interest, because you're definitely going to say something today that somebody is just, you know, a light bulb may go off or anything like that. So one, just tell us a little bit about yourself. And then two, just for everyone out there, you know, we're going to have people from your side, my side, some newcomers along the way. And I just want to make sure everybody is brought up to speed the same way. So can you just also tell us too, what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today?
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and congratulations on your episodes. You bring a lot of really good content. And, you know, part of the reason that I am here is to kind of like you spread that message, right? That a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of a keyword that may just bring that entrepreneur out there, you know, some light. So yes, my name is Suhei Piedra, and I am an enrolled agent. I've been doing taxes for, 20 plus years. I consider myself a tax strategist, but, it didn't happen overnight. Definitely, it's something that was rooted deep inside of me at a very young age. So I'm a Mexican American. And, by the age of 13, I was helping my parents balance checkbooks and, run the household. And so numbers was just something that was, part of who I had to be in order to be able to help and contribute to the household. taxes were scary. Taxes were scary. And I thought it was something that was scary just to my parents, since they really didn't know the language, to me, because I was 13, 14 years old at the time when I'm looking at these documents. But there was a specific time where, a specific year, that they got the documents mixed up, and I went over to my neighbor, and he was a retired older gentleman, white gentleman. And I said, "Hey, Mr. Tracy, these documents got a little mixed up. Can you help me put them back together?" And his first response was like, "Taxes, like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what goes with what. Like, taxes just scare me." And so I was like, "But you're white, right? Like, you're from here. You speak English, So to me, it was like eye opening. But from there on, I realized that taxes scare people just in general. Every client that I meet, the first thing they say is, they're here fearful, and not knowing what the outcome is going to be, dreading what the outcome is going to be. And so I had to shift. I had to shift my business. And I wish that the industry entirely would shift, right? That we knew more about taxes, that we didn't fear the IRS as much as we do, and that we were more proactive with our taxes. And that is what brings me to podcasts, and why I choose to do these type of interviews is because I want to spread it out, the message out there, that doing your taxes is not as scary as you think. And with a little bit of being proactive and understanding what those numbers mean, your finances, taking the time to really look at that, we can really make those shifts. And this goes out to my W-2 earners or my entrepreneurs, self-employed individuals. I think in general, we believe that, taxes is something to dread, and IRS is evil. And yet, that's not necessarily the case. We just need to really be more proactive with our finances.
I think proactive is an important word for sure, because as soon as you really spoke about what you were doing, I was like, "Dang, she chose to dive into that." One of the things that we dread doing, that is kind of nerving, because I'm not gonna lie, like, I kind of go the TurboTax route. I literally follow every direction to the T. And when I click submit, I'm still nervous. I'm still just
Yeah,
like, "Did I do something wrong? What does
right.
exemptions mean? What boxes? Why is there a zero box and then a double zero box? Why are there numbers in half the boxes and the other half not? Why are there so many taxes being taken out of mine?" I just get so nervous with that. I would say, as I've kind of gotten older, as I've talked to more people, held different positions, different jobs, I've made sense of things. I've made sense of what a 401k is. I've made sense of what a Roth IRA is, and just how to really kind of navigate and do all of that. But at the same time, it's a learning experience. I'm not somebody, whereas I love numbers, I love math, I love all of that. I wasn't balancing checkbooks or anything like that at such a young age. But I love numbers, and I love to be able to see it. You still have to, be very careful. You still have to be
Mhm.
very specific when you're doing that, because the government will find you. They don't play. My grandmother used to work for the IRS. They do. She does not play. They do not play. So I definitely will attest to that. Now, something that you kind of said in the beginning of that first answer was a tax strategist.
Yes.
So would you would you say that there are do's and don'ts that you have? There are certain things that you can kind of do. Would you say are you certified as like a tax strategist? I think I kind of know these answers, but I ask a lot of questions just because I want to really 101 and dump
Yeah,
these
of course.
simplify. So as a tax strategist, is that like I understand that's a title, I understand that's what you reference yourself as,
Mhm.
but are there certain qualifications, are there certain like guidelines or certifications that you may have needed to kind of consider yourself that, or is it just kind of based off your area of expertise and what you do right now?
So a little bit of both. There is no degree out there that says now you're a tax strategist, right? A lot of people lean towards CPAs. And I have an accounting degree and all that good stuff. But when you're a CPA, yes, there's CPAs out there that do taxes, but CPAs can focus on, being, more of, in the accounting world. They can work for companies. They can be, CFOs. They can do all these other stuff, right? It's just accounting, certified public accountant. What the tax strategist comes from is I had to seek a school or a program that would teach me more about really learning about strategies that are out there that I can utilize for clients. And so why I like that is because when you look for a tax advisor like myself, a tax strategist, somebody that takes the time to really dive into the strategy itself and figuring out ways to help the client. So it's not about, can I write off my pen? It's about how can I write off my pen? And when you ask that question is how can I, now it allows me to open up my box of, tricks and say, well, if you were to do this, or if you were to do that, now you can write off whatever widget you want to write off, right? And so if it fits within the ordinary and necessary guidelines of the IRS within your business, then it's a write-off. It's a write-off to you. Now, it may not be a write-off to me, and it may not be a write-off to your neighbor, because we're totally doing something different, right? But I think that when we do our taxes, we have this fear that all we want to do is make sure we check off that box, dot that I, that we don't take the time to look outside and figure out what else can I put in here, or what else can I take if I were to change a couple things here and there. That's why I say proactive, because the time to be really looking at your taxes is in the current tax year, not when it's time to prepare a return. That's where tax preparation comes from. That's where TurboTax, your H&R Blocks, or pretty much any tax preparer out there, they are preparing a document for you. They are preparing returns for you. And the software, TurboTax, that's what they're doing. They're preparing something for you. They're not working on the current tax year, being proactive, figuring out ways that you can change your business, your finances, your overall, tax, so that it can change. So what we do is we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, because nobody's even telling us, hey, you could have done something different. Because we don't know that, we just keep doing it over and over. And Uncle Sam's happy because he's the one that ends up with, the majority of that. And so I'm here to tell you, if you're proactive, you can keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket, because there's things out there that we can take advantage of. We just have to look at what your goals are. What are you doing? What kind of business are you in? What are your finances? And then we can look at some strategies and say, well, if you tweak this, and if you move this, and if you start operating this way, you will be able to take advantage of these strategies. And that's the difference between a tax preparer and a tax strategist or a tax advisor that's really looking for ways for you to take advantage of the IRS code.
Got you. I got you. And it's funny that you mentioned preparer too, because that's always a question that you see when you're doing your tax. Like, did you fill this out with a preparer? Did somebody else prepare this for you? But to now hear that, just when I thought, to me, if you would have asked me, well, what's being proactive when it comes to taxes? Filing as early as possible. That would have been my answer, But to now hear that, no, you should really be looking in the year that you're in, and not really just waiting for TurboTax to get that email. Hey, tomorrow we're ready for you to file. You got your W-2s? Okay, cool. Did you get electronic delivery? Because they say it comes faster. All right, well, you can do it now, and then you'll be the first wave of people that get it. But okay, now that's even something more to consider. So I want to take that really a step further, and I want you to also kind of enlighten not only me but others out there. So in the means of being proactive, in the means of just getting ahead of that curve and staying ahead of that curve, but also making sure that we take advantage of everything, every resource that's out there, what can we be doing? What can us, as people who may not necessarily be as versed in the accounting field, or versed with taxes, or just somebody who fills it out every year because they know that's kind of their legal obligation, what can we be doing once we kind of submit, or in those years where it's not technically tax season yet, to stay ahead of that curve, to be as prepared as possible, so that way when the time comes, we're kind of good, that fear is as low as possible?
Right. So it goes back to education and understanding, right? So working with someone like me, and I say an advisor, they will take the time to explain to you the tax return. So if you're coming to me today and saying, hey, I'm ready to do my 2023 taxes, right? I will prepare them. I am your preparer. I'm wearing the hat of the preparer. But then I take the hat on and I put the advisor hat on, and I'll be like, look, you made this much money. And you would be amazed at how many people be like, I didn't even know I made that kind of money. Like, where did it all go? Right. And so then I start going down line by line, which you hit submit on your TurboTax or your preparer. It doesn't matter. You sign the documents. But I bet you anything, you never looked at those forms. They look foreign to you. You don't even understand what those numbers are saying. And yet there's a story there. There's a story that tells me how much money you brought into your household as a single individual, a married individual, a self-employed individual. It doesn't matter. There's numbers there that are telling me what you brought in. And then we can ask, okay, well, where did it all go? How much did Uncle Sam really take from you? And when you start to realize the chunk that Uncle Sam takes from you, and there's ways that you can potentially improve that, now that's when you're excited about doing your homework, because you're going to see the impact of that in your pocket next year or as the year goes on. And so now I tell clients, it doesn't benefit me whether you do your homework or not. It's going to benefit you. It's potentially wealth building, right? It's potentially savings for you. We could, I love promoting things like, turning around and turning one asset into another. So assets buying assets like real estate, and then having cash flowing a passive income that funds other assets. And so that's what I'm trying to tell my clients, is that I see a bigger picture, that they even see themselves, because no one has ever pulled the blinds for them so that they could see their own finances. And so that's what the advisor does. And now when we project, we want to project, what is 2024 going to look like? Are you going to make the same kind of money? Are you going to make more? Did you get married? Are you going to have kids? Do you have a side hustle? What is that going to do? How is that going to bring in more money, right? What can you do to make make a little bit of a tweak to make a difference, so that next year's return, you see Uncle Sam's portion go down? Because that's when you start to realize, hey, I'm starting to shift these finances, this puzzle, to work in my benefit and not on Uncle Sam's benefit. So a lot of the times people are like, well, how did you come about? Why are you so different? And, when I learned about taxes, instead of fearing them, I embraced them, and I wanted to translate them to my parents in another language, right? And simplify them as much as possible. So that taught me that clients in general needed that hand-holding process. And so that's how I became an advisor, of looking at these returns and advising clients on what they can make, what can they do different, right? But a bigger one was in the 2008 time, when, a lot of people, 2009, were losing their homes, they were foreclosing. And I started to realize that it didn't matter how much money you made. What really mattered is what you do with your money. And man, I started to evaluate every single client that came through my desk. And I was like, this household brought in $500,000 a year, and their home's getting foreclosed, their car's getting repoed, they're living paycheck to paycheck, their credit just got tanked. And I'm like, how is that possible? I always thought if I made this kind of money, I'd be set, right? And we all think that. If I get a raise, or if I get a better job, or if I make more money, if I win the lottery, I'm going to be better. And I'm here to tell you that it's what you do with your money that matters. So no matter how much money you make, if those habits continue, it doesn't matter how much more you make, you're still going to find yourself in the same situation. So I realized that we have to educate ourselves different. We got to put new tools in our pockets. I started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started reading Tax-Free Wealth by his Robert Kiyosaki CPA, which is Tom Wheelwright. I started really getting myself involved with these individuals that talked about ways that we can make tax-free income, and then applying that to my business, and then just starting to see people flourish, my clients flourish. And so that is when I was like, there's something here that a lot of people don't know about. And that was when I started to realize that clients that even make $70,000 a year were all of a sudden having 5, 6, 12 rentals. And I'm like, wow, how are you doing it? They learned the power of leveraging. And so all of that came from just a little bit of tweaks, a little bit of more education, a little bit of, assistance throughout the current year, and not when it was too late, which is usually tax season the year after.
I love so much that you're hitting on the education component, because I have to agree. I even just really attributing it to myself, and just more so just rathering a TurboTax walk me through, or a Free Tax USA walk me through. And me, like you said, some of those forms, a good 80% of them are foreign to me. I don't know what's going on, what's happened. I remember when I was in school, and the 1098s and the T's and it was too much. And then the 1099s, and then, hey, if you have an LLC, you have to do that, and then this, and then that. And a lot of times I just take their word for it, even from the deduction standpoint. They were comparing the itemized deductions versus standard deductions. And they were kind
Right.
of, I can click the little question mark and it can tell me what both is. And then after I read it, I'm still just sitting there like, have no idea what I just read. But you're telling me to take this number because that's the higher number and that's what's going to benefit me more. I'm just naturally going to listen to you. But little do I know, if I sit down with somebody like Suhey, you could tell me something totally different. You could really break each one down for me and explain, okay, well, this is this, this is that, this could help you get there, this could really do this for you, and this could really do that. So I love that you also call it that hand holding process too, because I definitely do think we need that. For me, I need both of my hands held at the same time, because I need to really figure out what's going on, what's happened. I need to make the most sense of it and not just submit something. But because ultimately what I'm hearing here is that there's money being left on the table. There are proactive approaches. There are things that we can do to, one, prepare ourselves beforehand. So that way when tax season comes, we're even much better off. We feel better about submitting it. We feel better about sitting down with somebody to make it happen. And then do everything that we need to do. But then on top of it, really going through and just not clicking next because they say you're done here, or because this is what you answered last year, but clicking next because you're confident that you checked off every box, you dotted every I, you crossed every T, and it all makes sense to you. And that's something that I can say right now, even as I click through my TurboTax. I'm just trying to get to the point where I click that button and it tells me how much that refund is. So I can look at the top and I can either smile or I can frown, because one year I owed and I had no idea why I owed. I called my manager. I was just so confused. I'm just like, as soon as I moved down to Florida, all this stuff just goes haywire. And I never had to owe and everything like that, because growing up, I was even told too, at some points, not to file tax. I didn't make enough or everything like that. So I feel like there's just so many things out there, but I feel like it's all unique to the person. Somebody else could tell you, hey, even what you spoke about the pen, I could write the pen off, but to you, that's not something that you need, or that's not something that you utilize, or that wouldn't be useful for a write up to you. So I also want to kind of encourage people to take your own advice in a sense, and go hear it from a professional, go hear it from a strategist, a preparer, from somebody else who has no bias or has no real inclination to your life per se, only really letting them into what you want to. But you
Right.
can talk to family, you can talk to friends, and they can say, oh, I did this, or if you click that button, you'll get that. But for me, if I click that button, my balance is going in the negative somehow, and I click something wrong. So we need to
Yeah.
rewind it a little bit. Okay, so I want to ask this question just because, again, I feel like I may know the answer, but I don't like to make assumptions. As a preparer, as a strategist, as somebody who is in this field, very versed and knowledgeable about it, do y'all do y'all own taxes? Do y'all seek counsel from others? Is it just like, do you kind of just take? Because I asked that question because, one, obviously, like, I would answer that like tomorrow. Okay, why wouldn't I do my own taxes? I'm me. I'm her. Like I know kind of what's going on. I've studied this. I have this and that. But from another aspect, I would say the more eyes, the better. Somebody may see something, or somebody may explain something. Somebody may just ask you, "Hey, did you know you did that, or you did this?" And you may have not checked the box, or you may have accidentally unclicked something. So, from your perspective, or even from what you know about the industry and just what everybody does, you can speak personally, or broadly, or both. Are y'all naturally just doing your own taxes every year? Is it just kind of just in and out for y'all, or do y'all get counsel? What does that look like?
I think the majority of us are we're gonna do our own taxes. Okay. Where I don't know on others, I can't speak for anyone else, but for myself personally, I treat myself as a client. And what that means is, even as my business is about 5 years old, and when my sisters and I co-founded this business. So when we opened this business, we treat it as a client. And what that means is we make sure that we block off time to meet with that client, just like we would with any other client. So we review the numbers. How did this month go? And how does this month compare to last year this month? So that we can see if the company made improvement. And if it didn't, then why not? And what is the goal? What is it that we're trying to do, right? Because we can say, hey, I want to make, $1 million, right? But if this month I brought in zero, you have to work twice as hard next month, because now you got to bring in twice as much next month. You know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure that whatever that goal is for that year, that we break it down, monthly, weekly, however it needs to be, so that we know how hard we've got to work this particular week, so that it doesn't build up for us. Because before you know it, the end of the year's here, and I'll be like, well, I'm still way off that $1 million mark. You know what I'm saying? And so now we'll have to push the goal till next year. And so I always tell my business owners is, you really have to break it down and look at those numbers. What are they saying about you? What are they saying about your business? Is your business profitable? Is it running at a loss? What's your overhead? That amount of money you're spending on Facebook ads or your marketing, is it really returning on that investment? So it's like those things are the things that we really have to narrow down and look at a little closer. And I do that for my business. So as of right now, I haven't, felt that I needed outside counsel, but it doesn't mean that I won't in the future. I have, I seek sometimes outside counsel, even for clients that are much bigger, right? Because there's so many moving pieces. And like you said, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so it helps to have others and other individuals that are like-minded, that know other strategies, or work with other professions and be like, hey, what about this? Can you take a look at this? And so that's how I would treat it, is if I would seek outside counsel for a particular client, I would definitely seek it for my business at a certain point. And because you said, more eyes in my opinion, would be better. But one big advice I would give to entrepreneurs out there is to really, really look at your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet on a monthly basis. Block off some time to run your books, not just for taxes. Remember, everybody's right now rushing to do their books for last year, 2023. For what reason? To prepare their tax return. To me, that's already over. It's a done deal. We need to be looking at 2024's numbers so we know how to improve them. What other changes can we do? How can we, what is this going to cost us in taxes so we can start putting that money set aside if we need to? Or what strategy can we implement to minimize and reduce that tax liability if we can? So those are the reasons why I really truly believe that being proactive and looking at your numbers now and really learning to read that story. What are they trying to tell you about you and your, your finances? The time to read that is now, is not after the year's over, but today. And treat yourself like you would treat any other client. It's weird how we honor appointments with clients, but we don't honor our own time and appointments with ourselves. So we really have to take that and shift it so that we get to keep more of that money. So we really benefit from all this hard work money, the earnings we make, that, all the sacrifices we do. I told you I had a chaotic morning. It's family, right? But I am self-employed. I love the fact that I'm self-employed, and my family, I do this for my family. But if I can't be there for them because I'm so busy at work, tax season's chaotic. But then why am I doing this? Why do I say I'm doing this for my family if the people I'm stealing time from is the people I'm doing this for? So we have to ask ourselves those questions. We have to make those hard, take that time to really evaluate those hard questions so that we really figure out, why are we really doing this? And then make a shift.
That why is important with anything, and especially within business. And when you're a one man or one woman show, when you're self-employed, when this is your bread and butter, when this is putting the roof over your head, the clothes on your back, and everything of the sort. So no, I think that was very well said. Of course you're going to be the final say so, but it's nothing wrong with, like you said, if you would do that for someone else, if you would make sure you dotted every I, crossed every T, checked every box for somebody else, then you would be doing yourself a disservice to not make sure you go through that same protocol just the same. So I love that answer. I love that perspective. Now, I'm loving that you touched on the business side of things, because that was kind of where I wanted to kind of segue into next a little bit. Now, at what point did your sisters, your family, did you guys realize that you kind of wanted to brand yourself and that you really wanted to make this a business venture? Because you can have the passion, you can have the interest, you can have the skill, you can have even be able to facilitate that help to others, maybe close friends, family, you name it. But when you kind of then advertise and market yourself as a business, that's putting your services out there now to the public, and that's allowing or having others the opportunity to put their trust into you. So at what point did y'all kind of just come together, brainstorm, and really realize, hey, this is how we want to brand ourselves, this is really what we want to do?
Well, first of all, we just, it was really funny. We're in a jacuzzi, and I'm the oldest of 5 girls. So we're just chilling, having some, wine in a jacuzzi, enjoying my youngest sister's birthday. But we started talking about life and goals and stuff. And then the whole thing came up of, we have worked so hard, and like many others out there, we're W-2 employees. So we're making somebody else money. We're making someone else's dream come true. We're making someone else's business grow. And we just had this realization that we could do it on our own. And yet, we were helping someone else. Right. And I worked for a CPA firm at that point. And I'm like, man, like I'm helping someone else's business flourish, and it's not even for me, it's for them, right? So that was like a big realization we had. But like you said, it's hard because I still have a mortgage, I have a family to feed, and all these other responsibilities, kick in. And the fear of jumping to be an entrepreneur was hard when you have a nice W-2 and a consistent paycheck coming every week or whatever. So that was really hard. But what ended up happening is when this passion started to really grow within me, that I wanted to really become that advisor, and that other firm didn't support it because what they wanted was the volume. In the tax world, all your tax preparers, and I know everybody listening out there is going to relate, you either drop off your stuff and they'll call you when it's ready, or you maybe get to see your tax preparer for 5 minutes, or there's a line out the door of individuals waiting to get their taxes done. And that's because it's volume based. The more these businesses, the way they make their money is the more they pump in, the more they pump out is how they make their money. And so it's volume based. So how in the world am I going to be your advisor if I only have 5 minutes with you? Because the next person's waiting to come in and for me to give them their tax return, right? So I had to change that. I had to say, I can't, what's more important to me? And for me, it was to be able to really work my passion, which was to be able to consult individuals. So for that, I needed to break off. There was no CPA firm out there that really wanted to spend time with the client because that would cost them volume. They would cost, tax preparation fees. So when I broke off and did it on my own, that was one of the things that I first wanted to do, is like, I want to be able to spend, 30 minutes to an hour with each specific client. And the only way to do that was for me to start my own business. So that did help right there. But as life is crazy when you become an entrepreneur. The business takes a lot of your energy, a lot of your time. And I go back to, if my why was my family, they were the ones suffering. So it's crazy how it all, kept slapping me in the face. Like, hey, if you're doing this for us, why is it that you're not here? Why is it that I'm missing dinners? Why is it that, I'm not home until late at night? And so I had to really set boundaries. That's when the entrepreneur started to grow inside of me. I started to work on myself. I started to really work on setting boundaries with the business, right? Because the business needs to be, from 9 to 5, and then maybe I can work till 6. But after that, I need to be home. I need to, start to shift those things. So a lot of that time was working all those little things out and making sure that I can balance the business, I can balance my family, I can balance my personal time. And that all became, really hard and really difficult to face, but it was so necessary, and it made the business flourish at the same time. When I tell even my clients, hey, you guys have to learn how to work on your business and not just in it. And this is why, because if not, it will take all our time and energy, and our family is the one that suffers. So that was a big why I started my business, but I had to learn some boundaries very early on.
When families involved, there's not too many things, leaps and bounds that we won't go through to ensure they're taken care of, to ensure their
For sure.
health, to ensure their wealth and everything like that. So I think it lights a different fire under you when you know you have other people that are relying on you just the same. So I want to ask this question I want to make it really sound as simple as possible, but I want you to kind of just mind mind blow me here. So tax season is only really one particular time of year for those of us, I'm asking this from my perspective, those of us not really in the accounting industry, not really knowing anything, just regular tax people every year.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, we log into our TurboTax when we get that email, and we file and we copy and paste the W-2. So how is it that you, your family, your sisters, one of five girls, crazy. I love that. I love that though. One of five. How is it that you guys continuously stay employed, stay building the brand, stay building the business, stay making money for something that only goes one portion of the year? Now, I understand, like you said, the volume perspective. You can have a lot of volume, but at the end of the day, there's still deadlines to be met. I also understand that you don't always have to file taxes. Well, yeah, because something that was new to me, and we can kind of get into this a little bit later too. I didn't realize you didn't have to file taxes. Like the same, you have to file them, but I didn't realize you could just kind of wait a little bit, like take a
Right.
year off or just not do it or anything like that. I should have did that the year that I owed, to be honest, but we can talk about it later. So now, how everybody looks forward to tax season, those couple of months when the refunds are hit, when the money's there, when you may need it to just knock off some things, be proactive, everything like that. But once tax season is over, we really don't, I only hear from TurboTax really one time a year. How is it that so many CPAs, so many accountants, so many preparers, so many strategists, how are they still making money? How are they still in business? How are they still kind of making things happen in the off season per se?
So typically, and like I said, I've been doing taxes for 20 plus years, right? So I started off at, like a typical, H&R Block office and kind of style. So the way that they would stay in business is a lot of people file extensions. Not everyone is ready by April 15th, right? So you file an extension. And when you file that extension, now it is extended until October 15th. So you have 6 more months to get that return in. So some of them stay busy with those individuals that, have extensions. Volume based, when I said volume based is, some CPA firms that I worked for before had, 2,000 clients, 3,000 clients. So they just start to trickle in that off season time, right? Business owners take a little more time. So sometimes those business owners would file extensions and they wouldn't have to file their returns until September 15th. And so, those kind of things are what keeps them busy. Some tax offices work on helping clients get caught up with their taxes. So they usually have back taxes to file or resolutions if you're being audited and kind of and those things, right? And so they focus on those types of clients. For me, what keeps me busy through the rest of the year is the advisory portion. Remember, when I work with clients talking about 2024, I meet with my clients on the first quarter. So at the end of the first quarter. So while people are just filing their taxes for 2023, which would be April 15th, I'm meeting with my clients about first quarter of 2024. We're already ahead of the game. Then we meet again for second quarter, third quarter, we tweak and make changes, project what's changing, what are the goals, did we meet those goals, what are the sales, things like that. So it's all about projecting and looking at the big picture of that current year tax return. So that's what keeps me busy throughout the rest of the year. There will be the other deadline when people are all, cramming in here, and that would be the September deadline or the October deadline, because since they filed that extension, their time's up. They have to file by those dates. So there'll be again a rush of people trying to get in because they know that there's an extension deadline that is coming up. But yeah, and then so usually for November and December, if you were a tax preparer that was just filing based on those deadlines, there's not a whole lot to do, but other than get ready for the tax season of the new year. For me, again, I'm making sure that people are making their final contributions into their 401ks, or if they're going to be buying or, getting like a big piece of equipment or buying that car or whatever little last minute tweaks we got to do before that December deadline is being done, because if not, the strategy that we just projected or planned on ain't going to work. And so we want to make sure that those things that we talked about meet that December deadline so that you could take advantage of it during that current calendar year. So a lot more planning goes into play, but it needs to be done before the year's over. And that's what keeps me busy the majority of that time.
I love it. And I think you also just gave a perspective as to how business never stops.
Correct.
Even when you're done with one client, there's still work and preparation to be done for somebody else. Even when you're done meeting with your tax preparer, tax strategist, there's still other things that you could be doing because you have to make it through the rest of these quarters. Even if you're in the fourth quarter now, well, now we're thinking about next year because at the end of that next year, we're going to be meeting at the end of Q1 to talk about things already and to get
Yeah.
us past what already happened. So I love that. Like, while most people are kind of operating behind the eight ball, you're already a step ahead of the game. But that makes a lot of sense when it comes to the extensions, the other people coming in, the clientele. So that's also something I wanted to ask you about clientele. Now, when it comes to what you do you stick within a particular range of clients? I know we've talked about like millionaires. I know we
Mhm.
talked about your W-2 workers. I know we talked about business owners, entrepreneurs. Do you work with a little bit of everyone because everybody is kind of just unique to the business? Are there things that you kind of just stick to or you have your expertise with? Because I recognize that you're not just in business with yourself. And then something that you also spoke to was if you can't necessarily do something or if you need to add additional counsel or resources in, you'll do that just the same. So who are you working with? Because I know we're going to have a range of people listening to this episode as well. And I
Right.
also kind of just want to give them that insight too as to what strategists and preparers do just the same.
Yeah, so the beauty about, being an enrolled agent is that I am federally licensed across the United States. So I have clients literally across, right, in different states. The client that, really flourishes with us is going to be the client that is tired of that rat race, that wants to make the change. What's the point of me advising you and giving you homework if you're not going to do it? You're not ready, right? It ain't benefiting me, it's benefiting you. One of the really cool things that we started this year is a lot of our clients wanted to really get to um, learn more about how is it that they can generate tax-free passive income. And we started to really talk about real estate out of state. So even though we're in California, housing here is very expensive, and it takes quite a bit of savings in order to get your first property or your first rental and stuff like that. So we started to really look at other states like Alabama, states like Mississippi, states like Ohio. Even some clients have property that, maybe they like to vacation in Florida and therefore they bought a rental property in Florida to take advantage of some of those tax strategies. And so we really started to build, these teams of real estate agents, property managers that literally help us take care of our properties throughout, whatever state that we're in. And now that is now a strategy that I get to apply to the tax return and educate you on how that's either going to help you or what is that going to look like on the return or what is your next move should be. It's like playing the Monopoly game, right? You want to buy every little house and then turn it into, a bigger house, or what piece of the puzzle do you move next? And so that's where the strategy comes in, is we really look at what is it that you got going on, where could there be room for improvement, what are the goals, and how do we make those puzzle pieces move so that they help you and get you ahead of the game. And so that's clearly the client that we're looking for is going to be that client that has that forward thinking mentality, that client that wants to be working with an advisor that can literally show them a bigger picture than even they see themselves sometimes. But you got to be wanting to change the like I said, that hamster on the wheel. You want to change it, and if you want to change it, then you need a team behind you that is going to help and support that as well.
All these gems, man. Oh, I love it. I want to file my taxes again now. Jeez, I need a refresh, a revamp. Okay. Why do people evade taxes?
Honestly, I think it goes back to that fear, right? Why do we evade anything? When we run away from something is because we have a fear, but it's fear more of the unknown. Once we explain them to them, they're like, oh, why was I running this whole time? Or, and it's crazy to see how many people leave deductions or strategies on the table because they were afraid, because they didn't know, because no one took the time to explain to them that they're entitled to that strategy or that deduction, or because we're unorganized, when we do our bookkeeping for just tax purposes, perfect example right now, right? We are in the 2024 tax season and people are getting ready to prepare their 2023 taxes. If you're self-employed, you don't remember what you did last January. Are you going to remember that you bought a printer or that you bought, something that, a microphone that you needed for your podcast or whatever it is that you're doing? Half of the time we don't remember. And so when we don't have our records straight, then we forget. And so I'll be sitting here and I'll be like, man, you owe this money, or your business is missing some stuff. They'll be like, what? And I'm like, well, you were in real estate. Didn't you do this or didn't you do that? Or, whatever. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot. I bought paper, I bought this, and I bought that. And so all of a sudden I'm fishing for deductions when you just should have all this stuff ready because you don't want to leave it on the table. If I wasn't fishing, I wouldn't have got anything and you would have left all those write-offs. And again, who wins? Uncle Sam wins. Uncle Sam wins when we're not organized. And so I just hate seeing that. And I think people, that's why they run from it, is because they don't want to look at it. They're more afraid, but yet they're letting Uncle Sam keep their money. So it's worth taking a look at it.
That answer resonated with me for a couple of reasons. One, just because I think it's so important to track progress with anything in life that you do. Even with my podcast, like I keep statistics as to when we hit a certain amount of plays or what episode did this or the graphs and everything like that. The reason why this resonated with me also was because my job. So when I went to a year ago now, almost a year to date, when I got promoted, um, they were pretty much asking, my previous manager was telling me, hey, well, he's always kind of told me, big shout out to John Lopez, my guy J Lo, always told me to just keep track of things in a note. And for some things he would remind me here and there with with projects I was championing and what initiatives I helped, because it's always interesting to hear what you did. Or if somebody asks you, hey, what did you do? You kind of can just say it plainly.
Right.
But in professional terms, it can sound like something totally different. Like, I was coming across some TikToks where they were just like, yo, you can revamp your resume in the simplest ways. It's all just about wording and what you say and how you say it and everything of the sort. But why that resonated with me was because when I went now for my promotion and I was then trying to pretty much remember all the projects and stuff that I led, I couldn't remember. He was telling me stuff he's like, you remember you did that? And I was just like, I don't remember, but now that you mention it, wow, you're absolutely right. So now that for me, that makes sense. One, because it's something I do with the podcast I'm starting to do it more so with purchases and everything now that I have my LLC and everything. But I was doing it before with just stats, even with the Spotify raps of the year, it kind of just everything and all that. But I think it's so important to keep that in different areas of your life, in the business side of things and financial side of things and the spiritual side of things, professional. When I was in I think about it too, you can equate it to when people are weightlifting or training or everything like that. You want to track that progress. You want to make sure that you're kind of, I guess, not kind of coming up to speed, but you want to make sure that you're following that guideline or that program you have. So for me, that just really hit home a lot more, because it further just confirms that, hey, just continue to do that. Just continue to write that down. Even if you don't necessarily use it that first year, the second year, you'll always just have it as record keeping or bookkeeping or something to kind of reflect back on, because you can't think about, we're in February, it's February now and we're doing this interview. I really can't even tell you everything that I did in January per se. I know I'm going to say the same thing, and we're just going to keep playing this game as we continue to go. And once summer gets here, the year is just like that, and the holidays start hitting, and before you know it, we're right back here again. So I love that you say that, but I also want people to understand that, hey, we're not just talking about taxes here. This can be applied to almost every facet of your life, and I think that is so important. So all right. I feel like like I said, you really came on here. You really just now I'm questioning, and it's funny, the timeliness of this episode is actually so funny, just because my tax return actually hit today, and nobody's watching this. Don't no, I don't have it. Okay, it's gone. It's in the savings. But no, I just think that is so. I think it's so important, just because, one, this is, like you said, the fear, and I really think it's going to be the name of this episode, the fear of the unknown. I think that for a lot of my life, I had that, and I was just so worried about what everybody else had to say. Maybe they didn't have the best tax experience, or maybe they didn't get everything that they were entitled to, or they left money on the table and everything of the sort. There's not something, I don't like to leave food or money on the table. So now that I'm kind of hearing this, and now that I'm getting a different perspective, and now that I feel like I'm somebody who I'm still a novice. I still just follow, like I said, I literally go through step by step with TurboTax, but now I want to make sense of things. Now I'm thinking about the next time I go around, or even when I get off this call now, what can I be doing to be proactive? What can I be doing to be prepared? Because tax season is not just this stretch of months where you get the W-2s and you file, as Suhey has really explained to us today. It's really all year. And
Correct.
because it can also impact, we're not just trying to worry about how much money we're making. It's more so about what are you going to do with that money? Because the money will hit and it can be gone just like that, But if you utilize it, if you stretch it out across there, if we think about other different investments, if we think about tax-free income and everything of the sort, we can really kind of open up some doors here and really kind of move different ways a little bit. So no, I just have to thank you for that. Obviously, I love talking to everybody on the podcast. I wouldn't be this deep into it if I didn't. I'm not that bored, but I would say when it comes to industries and niches that I'm not familiar with at all, it just opened my eyes to everything. And this is something that, for as much as I love numbers, for as much as I love getting that notification, hey, it got approved, you're all good. It was federal and state were both accepted. Whew. I still don't, I still don't know. There are still some questions on there that I'm looking at like, wow, there's still some things when it comes to write-offs that I didn't realize, it wasn't until I started talking to other business owners and entrepreneurs and they're telling me about gas. They're telling me about different outings. They're telling me about what they do, what they utilize, how they do it. I'm just like, wow, would have never, who would have thought, type thing. But it's just like, and to them, it just seems so simple. It just seemed knowledge that's out there for everybody. But little do we know, sometimes it's the blind leading the blind in a
Right.
sense. So before we officially wrap things up, before we tell people where they can find you, explore your services and resources and everything, and even get started on that proactive journey today, do you feel like there's anything that we haven't touched on today that you want to leave for people out there? Any direction or even any things that, as we kind of continue to move through this year, that from a business perspective, you guys are thinking about unveiling or kind of tapping into? Even, I feel like there may be people who come across this episode and you may have sparked the interest, whether it be wanting to meet with a strategist or a preparer, or maybe even wanted to do this on their own. Are there any resources out there for people kind of looking to get into this field, this niche, kind of do this work in a sense to help others just the same? Because I feel like, that is part of your story. You recognize that people were leaving things on the table. Uncle Sam was hitting some people over the head and some people just simply didn't know. You took it upon yourself. Let me help these people. I've had an interest and I've had a passion in this for quite some time, from helping family to this. Let me now translate that and put that on you. So to anybody coming across this episode in any capacity, is there just anything that you want to leave out there for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just repeat the same statement, right? Where it's not about how much money you make, it's what you do with the money that matters. One of my wealthiest clients made around $70,000 a year as a custodian at a public school. And he was able to retire early. He was able to, have real tax-free income in his retirement. And all because he learned how to make his money work for him. And why I repeat, educating ourselves on how it is that we can keep more of that hard-earned money in our pockets. And a lot of the times, like I said, taxes is something we only want to think about during tax season, and we never want to think about them again. But if you control and if you plan a wedding or your camping trip, you want to make sure that you take your tent and your matches and all these essential tools so that you can have an amazing trip or an amazing wedding, that you plan every single detail. Then why aren't we planning our taxes, our finances, so that we can control them and have a better outcome, right? Those are the kind of things that we really need to focus, and we need to focus on it now and start thinking about it and being more proactive in today versus, being reactive and saying, well, I don't have the money now and now I'm in a hole, and, that craziness of being stressed and fearful of the IRS. That's not how it should be. And I'm here to spread that message. I wish more people were doing this, and that there is solutions out there. So that would definitely be my closing message for everybody.
The word of the year is proactive. I think we can come to that agreement. I got my guy Steve tapping in with me here, so no, I appreciate the love. But no, I love that, and I love how with there are just certain things, niches, industries, knowledge that we come across that sometimes we want to gatekeep, and sometimes we don't want to put out there. Sometimes we want people to go through the hoops and hurdles that we had to go through in order to get it. But there are other times where you just take that selfless approach and you just tell people, hey, I recognize that I could have come across this knowledge in a plethora of different ways. But at the end of the day, no matter how it was taught to me, no matter how it was learned unto me, I want to reciprocate it unto others. I want others to be there because who knows what can, who, I think sometimes people forget the kind of cycle as to where you can teach someone something, or you can bring them under the wing, or you can give them the resources. They can end up helping you. They could end up giving you another perspective or another eye, because like we said, the more the merrier. The more eyes that are onto something, the better. We can both be experienced. And it's not to say just because I caught something and you didn't, I'm any more better or less than you, because if we flip it, or if we give another scenario, we could bring another client in, I could catch something that you maybe can't. So
Right.
I love and I really admire and commend all the work that y'all are doing, all the tireless because I could imagine that this stuff, it can get dizzy looking at numbers and screens and papers and things all day. You can probably work with some clients who really just may not know things, or really may overcomplicate. I feel like sometimes I overthink, and I think that's why I double check it, I triple check, and I quadruple check, and I'm
Yeah.
still leaving stuff on the table. So it's okay, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like, for the notion and the connotation around taxes. It's not an easy industry to just dive into, to stay into, and to really just be impactful to. So I take my hat off, imaginary in this case, everything that y'all are doing. And I thank y'all, but obviously from the down to the business side, we are in full support and full throttle. I'm calling out all of my followers, whether you learned something today, whether something just caught your interest, whether you still haven't filed your taxes or maybe filed for that extension, my business owners, my entrepreneur. I know we at least got 150 plus business owners somewhere through this. So look, let's utilize one another. Let's each one teach one. Let's all help each other. So, Suhey, before we officially close out and wrap up, can you just tell us all the places to find you, connect with you, website, social media, read a little bit more about what you guys are doing from the business side of things, and just follow along the journey?
Yes, for sure. So we're very active with our social media. Like I said, trying to spread the message as much as possible. So our Instagram is prominence.services. And you can visit our website. Our website is prominencebusiness.com. And feel free to reach out. I mean, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, you can find us at pretty much any of those platforms. We do give clients a 15-minute free introductory call to see if you are, if we're a good match for you, and if you're a good client that we can help as well. So it's an interview that goes both ways. We want to make sure that we work with the right individuals and that the right individuals take advantage of our services. So, any questions, we're here to help.
And that name just prominence. It just lights come on, y'all. I'm not even here to be a salesman, but come on, what more do I need to put in front of you? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
no, but seriously, thank you. I'm very excited. One, now to kind of be on the other side of taxes in a sense, but now really be fueled. Now really be thinking about what I can do, so that way when I'm back in this situation a year from now, I'll be better off. And what
Yes.
do I need to do? And so I encourage everybody, even myself, take advantage of the consultation. Take advantage. Look, whenever you hear that F word, free or food, or both of them together, just let's do it. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing bad can happen from it. If we go our separate ways, okay. At the end of the day, you're still going to learn something or leave that call. Maybe you may even be able to refer someone else, in a sense. So I feel like we're in the space, we're in the place for, we should really be okay with not knowing things, or okay with being taught things, or okay with, saying, hey, relinquishing the control a little bit. Like I said, you don't have to hold just one hand. You can hold both of mine, and we can walk step by step and figure it out. So Suhey, the team over at Prominence, thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for just for connecting me, for the quick turnaround time, for everything that happened, for being patient with me, because I know my schedule can be all over the place sometimes. It can be a little bit.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, even with a chaotic day, you still came on here, you still made it happen, and you dropped a lot of gems. So just know that we're here, we're rocking and rolling with you. My guy Steve is here rocking with you. Phrase of the day is be proactive, as he said. We're gonna make it the phrase of the year. Add some more to it, but I love that one for sure. So to everybody out there who continuously taps in with us, who shows us love, who helps continue to push this vision along, I love you. I thank you. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast, here with Tamar Turner.